Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. Early next month, newly crowned IBF featherweight champion Nina Meinke will be making her first defense of the IBF title by taking on former three-weight champion Daniela Bermúdez for the second time. This fight will be in Germany, just like the first one. And I don't know what the circumstances of the bout are. Why exactly is Nina running it back with Daniela Bermúdez? Was she ordered to do so by the IBF? The fight being in Germany for the second time gives Nina Meinke home field advantage. 32 years old to Daniela Bermúdez, who's 35. Nina is a southpaw, whereas Daniela is an orthodox fighter. Nina sports a professional record of 19 wins with 3 losses, no draws, 4 knockouts, having been knocked out once in 22 professional bouts, to the more experienced Daniela Bermúdez, who sports a professional record of 32 wins with 5 losses, 3 draws, 12 knockouts, having been knocked out once in 40 professional bouts. Although Daniela Bermúdez is the vastly more experienced fighter of the two, and the more decorated fighter of the two, she's also the naturally smaller fighter of the two. Featherweight is a weight that Daniela moved up to, whereas Nina moved down. Nina has campaigned as high as lightweight, whereas Daniela has campaigned as low as light flyweight. Not that active in the last calendar year. She only fought once last year. That was in September, the first fight with Nina. And it's the same deal for Nina. Nina wasn't that active last year either. She only fought once. That was the fight with Daniela. Now, what do I expect to see in the second fight? More of the same. Daniela Bermúdez, God bless her, is a pressure fighter. Pressure fighters don't change much from one fight to the next. What you see is what you get. And rematches are often won by the fighter who can change, the fighter who can adapt. That is seldom the pressure fighter. That's not Daniela. I think that's more Nina than Daniela. And thus, I expect Nina Meinke to win the second fight in similar fashion to how she won the first. And it helps that she is the home fighter, the hometown fighter, the house fighter, one of 3 reigning champions in the featherweight division. There is unified champion Amanda Serrano, who we all know is otherwise preoccupied up there at 140 with that Katie Taylor trilogy. There is also newly crowned WBC champion Tiaria Brown, who pried the green and gold belt away from then champion Sky Nicholson, which greatly inhibits Nina's ability to capitalize off being a champion, where before she could have scored a decent-sized payday unifying titles with Sky Nicholson, win or lose. She doesn't stand to make as much money fighting Tiara Brown. That's the problem. If they were to fight, I would go with Tiara Brown to beat Nina Meinke. However, I question whether or not they will, because there's not a big reward in it for Nina. There's not a big cash prize in it for her, so I question whether or not they can lure her to America. I don't know with any certainty that Nina Meinke's people would try to lure Tiara to Germany. It's a dangerous fight irrespective of where you have it. Don't know what the immediate future holds for the newly crowned WBC champion, but we do know what the immediate future holds for Nina Meinke. She has to make it past Daniela Bermúdez for a second time. I think she's going to early next month, on the 10th. 2 weeks from now. I expect that she will win a points decision. I expect that she will remain IBF champion. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, in the men's welterweight division, former champion Jose Ramirez ponders the extent of Devin Haney's beating. Moreno Valley, California. The question of the night in Times Square Friday will be, what can we expect from Devin Haney? The boxing world is wondering, and so is his opponent, Jose Ramirez. The beating he took is one you can't just forget. Even though it was erased from BoxRec, Ramirez trainer Robert Garcia told Boxing Scene in an exclusive interview as they broke camp in Southern California this weekend. You can't take away the fact Haney took a beating, which is true. You can erase it from the history books and act like it didn't happen, but ultimately the effects...
We don't know that didn't have a lasting effect on Devin Haney.
The 3-knockdown drubbing from Ryan Garcia in Haney's most recent bout, which is approximately a year ago, was notably converted from a majority decision loss to a no contest when Garcia tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. But it leaves an uncertainty about whether or not Haney can endure the type of forceful pressure he should expect at this level, especially against a determined former unified 140-pound champion in the 29-2 Ramirez, who's out to prove that. At age 32, he can wash away the stain of a somewhat vacant showing last time out in his November unanimous decision loss to Friday night's 140-pound title challenger, Arnold Barboza.
It's always in Jose's mind to win, Garcia said, before Ramirez's final sparring session Saturday. He doesn't see it like, this is my last chance, do or die. He always fights with his heart, always is in shape. But there is that reality that after that last fight against Barboza, he needs to come out and give a spectacular performance for the boxing world. Not for us, because we know him, but to the boxing world. He needs to do that something special, to let them all know he's still where he belongs.
Ramirez has expressed enthusiasm about moving up in weight, performing on Friday's unique outdoor stage, and asserting himself as a title challenger who wants to replace Devin Haney as the planned opponent for Ryan Garcia in early fall.
Can he do it?
Garcia said what he's seen from Ramirez in camp qualifies as turning back the clock to when Ramirez impressively defeated rising challenger Amir Imam back in 2018, and then stopped then-champion Mighty Mo Hooker in his home state of Texas 1 year later to become a unified champion. Against Arnold, no excuses. Barboza had a great plan and won, but this camp is totally different, Garcia said. Jose's more motivated. He's training so hard, he's sparring like he was when he was in his prime, and even when he lost the undisputed title fight against Josh Taylor, he had a great camp like this. The sparring partners are saying how strong he is. We feel it. It's a totally different camp. What's so different about this fight camp than the ones before it?
Because, the trainer's going to say what he has to say ahead of the fight. You ask the trainer, you ask the fighter, this is the best camp they've ever had ahead of every fight.
They always say that. So what's supposed to set this camp apart? And I think what makes this one different is Jose's moving up in weight. He doesn't have to boil down to 140.
Yeah. Watch him. Watch him. May 2nd. Yeah.
There's speculation Devin Haney, the favorite, will be content to rely on his movement, to remain evasive and stay out of a dogfight in order to reach perhaps the year's most anticipated bout as Garcia meets former 140-pound champion Rolly Romero before the already agreed-upon Garcia versus Haney rematch in Saudi. Devin's going to want to box. Forcing Devin into a fight is what we need to do, Garcia said. Going into the next fight against someone like Jose says a lot about Haney and his dad, trainer Bill Haney. They made this decision because they want to show they still belong with the top contenders in the division. They could have easily taken someone else. They know Jose's tough. They want to show the world they're still up there, even though they lost to Ryan, who's very strong and fast and caught him. Remember, that was still a good fight, still close. Haney was in the fight.
Devin Haney worked this camp at Hall of Fame fighter Shane Mosley's Big Bear Lake, California gym. There was never anything elusive about Mosley's style, so what did Haney take away from that experience?
Everybody in boxing is wondering, what Haney are we going to see? It's a question we ask ourselves and don't know. Is that beating he took on his mind, or is it out of the way and he's fresh from a 1-year layoff? Garcia asked. We'll see, but I do know that for Devin and Bill, Taking this fight says a lot about them. They could have easily taken someone else. It's interesting that they brought in Shane Mosley. I know Shane very well from the amateurs and the pros. Mosley is a great fighter, a true, smart fighter who always came to fight. So it'll be interesting to see what Devin takes from him.
I queried the exact same thing a little over a week ago when it was announced that the Haneys enlisted the aid of Shane Mosley. When Shane was active, he was a very different fighter to Devin.
Shane was an artillery fighter, an action fighter, a fast one, a strong one, an offensively minded one, whereas Devin, as we all know, is mostly defense.
As the Times Square card looms, so many questions hover. How will Ryan Garcia perform after the stain of the positive tests and his erratic pre-fight behavior the last time out? Can Rolly Romero recover from losing his belt? Which version of Teofimo Lopez Jr. will we see?
But the greatest unknowns are connected to Haney versus Ramirez. For both fighters, I know Jose because he trains with us, and he's training harder than ever, like he's preparing for his first world title fight, motivated, ready, Garcia said. I don't know where Haney is, but I know they want to make a statement. It's gonna make for a great fight. I think both will bring their best because they both need a big win.
It's a tough one. It's a tough fight to call.
I've maintained that stylistically, a mid-range to inside pressure guy like Jose, usually that's a nightmare for a pure boxer like Devin Haney.
It doesn't help that Devin is coming off a beating to Ryan Garcia, and it really doesn't help that he hasn't fought in over a year.
Debuting at a new weight, they both are, Devin and Jose. It helps Jose, at his age, in his early 30s, that he's not boiling down to 140 anymore. One could argue that the reason he's looked flat in the past was from making that weight, whereas now,
he doesn't have to.
Not having to boil down to 140 benefits Jose, but it also benefits Devin.
Yeah, we know he was tight at 135. No, he was tight at 140.
So many intangibles and so many different ways to interpret them. You could argue that Haney versus Ramirez is the most intriguing fight on the bill. There's a legitimate argument for either guy to win the fight to where there's no wrong answer until the night. So who are you going with? Are you going with Devin?
Or are you going with Jose?
There's really not a lot of time to make a decision. The fight is just a little over 2 days away. Who do you put your faith in?
I think I'm gonna have to go with Devin on this one.
The reason for it. As bad as Devin looked in the Ryan Garcia fight, getting knocked down 3 times, it was still competitive, and he still won rounds. Jose is not as fast, or as explosive, as sharp, as Ryan Garcia.
I think that matters, that Jose's not as quick to the draw as Ryan.
It also doesn't help that Jose languished a bit with Rancis Bartholomew, a pure boxer like Devin is a pure boxer. He also lost to Arnold Barboza.
Yeah, he's a boxer too. He's a mover, he's a jabber, but I don't think he's better with that base style than Devin.
The logic is, if Arnold Barboza can win a points decision against you, then perhaps so can Devin.
There are other intangibles, other variables that I cannot account for here and now.
I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But for Friday night's fight, I'm going with Devin Haney to win a points decision. I've the sneaking suspicion he's got something up his sleeve. He's had time to rest, time to recover, and he will show up on form Friday night in Times Square. The forecast calls for rain, and I wonder how the event coordinators are going to deal with that.
And what effect that might have on the night, on the fights.
But with little time to make a decision, I'm going with Devin Haney to win on points. I understand that Jose brings some ingredients to the table that could give Devin Haney a hard time.
I think movement is how Devin is going to beat him. He's going to beat him with his feet.
Moving around, mitigating the exchanges, staying behind the straight punches,
and walking Jose into them. Jose's got his virtues, but he's a flat-footed guy. He is slow on his feet.
And that's how I think Devin beats him, on the move.
No, I haven't watched it back. I probably won't watch it back for a while. I'll just, let it all settle down and, watch it back maybe in a couple of weeks, probably. Seen the highlights for what I nicked it, based on how I felt. But I've got to dissect it, I've got to properly watch it, with my team. Yeah, of course it's painful. No one wants to lose, do they? It's painful. But ultimately, it's part of the game, man. Not really much I can do about it. It's just gutting. Yeah, it's gutting. Of course it is.
Where's your respect level for Eubank now?
Yeah, I respect him as a fighter. I wouldn't say he's my cup of tea as a person. I wouldn't go for coffee with him. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't go for some breakfast with him. But, you know, as a fighter, you got to respect anyone you do 12 rounds with. You know, he fought good 12 rounds. But that's as far as that goes, yeah. So, you know, although my stocks went up, you know, I just would have rather have won, to be honest. But I always said throughout my whole career, I'd rather lose an exciting fight than win a boring fight. I mean, seeing you coming to see me, we were chatting. So I held my hand on that. You know, me and Senior were just chatting away. I mean, obviously we've signed the rematch. We had the rematch clause both ends, so we just got to wait and see. Ultimately, I'm ready to. I can fight again this weekend.
The more I ponder Conor Benn's next move, the more I start to feel that he should just move down. Learn from the loss, learn from your mistakes, but go back to welter. Long-term gains.
Versus what you can get in the short term. In the short term, if you focus on Chris in September, you know you stand to make at least $10 million from it.
Maybe a little more than that. But you could probably make that same amount of money boxing a Devin Haney, a Ryan Garcia, that proliferation of young fighters that are now moving into the welterweight division.
They're worth some money, and so are you.
Of course, so is a Chris Eubank Jr. rematch, but it comes at a compromise. If you spend the entirety of this year at or around middleweight, getting down to welter becomes more difficult to do. You're 28.
It's painfully close to 30.
So it's all about short-term gains versus long-term gains. You stand to make a lot of money boxing Chris again in September in the short term, but what long-term effect does that have on your career? Because you're not built like a middleweight. You're not really built to fight there. And having a competitive fight with Chris...
And that's the other thing. Are your chances against Chris so good in September that you should run it back? Because what if you lose again?
Oh yeah, you get to make some money, but now you'll have 2 losses in the column, having spent the entire calendar year campaigning as a middle, so that in the following one, getting down to welter will be more difficult to do.
The more I think about it, I think Conor should just move down.
He gave a great account of himself against Chris Eubank Jr., but he's not a middleweight.
And don't stay too stuck on that loss, because believe it or not, your stock just went up. That many more people are going to want to see you fight based on what you just displayed.
An encouraging message in the new era that you don't need an unbeaten, unblemished record to sell, to put asses in the seats.
During the Mayweather era, everybody forgot that you don't need to be perfect.
You don't need a perfect record to be a draw. A spirited loss is sometimes better than a ho-hum victory, a ho-hum win.
Conor Benn can now return to the welterweight division with the assurance that the next time he fights, people are going to be there. They're going to want to see it. And with this proliferation of young fighters entering into the welterweight division, now's the time to go back.
The more I think about it, I think that Conor should move back down.